Welcome to The Faithful Steward. This is a podcast all about sharing biblical wisdom and practical insights in order to help church leaders pursue and teach financial freedom as part of Christian discipleship. We believe this is a spiritual conversation, and this is a place where the church needs to lead the way in order to move our communities forward in how we steward God's resources. I'm your host, James Lenhoff, and I am so passionate about this conversation and helping leaders have the confidence to step into it. We believe that if we help people thrive financially and grow spiritually, it changes everything. And I am so excited to join you on this journey. This podcast is brought to you by Good Sense. If you'd like more information about what we're up to, you can go to our website at goodsensemovement.org. All right, let's get started with today's conversation. Today we're going to kick off a two-part series on the topic of retirement. Specifically, how do we do it with intentionality? How does this idea of retirement gel with our biblical calling to stay connected to meaningful, purposeful work in retirement? I think that is a really hard thing to do. It's a really important thing to have a plan for. And so we want to just dive in to these two parts. We're going to start with this just general understanding of retirement. How do we plan for it? How do we prepare for it? And then next time, I'm going to talk about how to actually live that out. If you're in that stage of retirement, what does it look like? But first, I want to start with just the preparation and how to think about it. Because retirement, a lot of times, is rooted in this idea that someday I will get to a place where I don't have to do anything, that retirement is every day's a Saturday. I just get to have fun. I get to play. I get to never work another day in my life. And I would argue, I'm not sure that's biblical. Now, the thing that's really difficult here is I spent 23 years in the financial planning industry helping people prepare for and step into retirement. And that was the vision a lot of times. I'm going to play golf all the time. We're going to travel the world. We're going to do all the fun things that we want to do. And we're not really going to put our hand to the plow. We're no longer going to be actually engaged in meaningful work. We're just going to be mostly engaged in pleasure and leisure. And I watched people step into that stage with that mindset. And the truth is, it didn't go well. It started off well. It started off fun. They would call me and they would say, every day's a Saturday. This is great. And then at some point, a few years into that experience, they would call and say, every day's a Saturday. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do to bring meaning to this stage of life. It's so confusing after living in this work world for so long that had structure and goals and things to drive and push forward. Now I'm kind of in this weird place where I don't know what the point is. And so that's really why I think it's a difficult thing to navigate. It's not biblical to fully check out. In fact, Jesus tells a parable about this guy that builds bigger and bigger barns. And he talks about this idea that he gets to this place where he has so much abundance and there's so much extra that he builds even bigger barns in order to store all that extra. And then he tells himself, now you can do nothing. Now you can check out and eat, drink, and be merry. You can basically say, I can just indulge. And that is actually the issue. Jesus doesn't seem to have a problem with the fact that the guy had storehouses. It was reasonable to store and prepare. It was that he had so much extra that he didn't know what to do with it, and that extra convinced him he could do nothing. And that is the issue. Retirement should not look like nothingness. It should not look like complete self-indulgence. I mean, think about what Ecclesiastes tells us about this life that's so focused on self-indulgence that it's meaningless. It's vapor. All of the chasing of self-indulgence and pleasure leads to still wanting something of meaning and purpose. And so I do think when we approach the idea of retirement, that planning and looking forward to it needs to be aiming at something that maintains meaning and purpose. I tell people to think in terms of a balance between pleasure and purpose. that there is still an effort involved. There's still a calling on your life. There's still a reason to get up and go do and go be part of what the kingdom is up to. You may not do it for a paycheck anymore, but that doesn't mean you don't do anything. That doesn't mean you completely disengage from productive effort. I think that we are designed to be working, to be producing, to be co-creating, to be putting forth the effort with the skills and the talents and the energy that God has given us. If that goes away, we go away. And I watched that happen. People would just fade. They would completely disengage, and then they would lose their identity and they would fade into oblivion. And so we need to be planning for a retirement that starts with a vision that is not just leisure, not just pleasure, that there is so much more to it than that. One of the things that's really key in this is starting while you're working to discover those things that you find deeply connecting to your purpose. I think God placed in each one of us a very unique version of his heart, a very specific aspect of what he really cares about. And so all of us have different excitements, different energy levels, different focuses on certain things. For some, it might be education. For some, it might be the arts. For some, it might be helping people in poverty. For some, it might be trying to correct injustice in our social systems. Whatever those things are, all of us are different in that. And I think that's by design. God has placed that diversification and that variety in all of us so that when we come together as the body of Christ, we do all the kingdom work. If all of us were only passionate about one thing, there'd be a whole lot of other things that aren't getting attention and aren't being cared for. And so one of the things that's really important in our working years is to discover the things that actually align our heart with the heart of the Lord. What's the work that we will always want to do, that we are super passionate about? Now, what are the organizations that are doing that work? What's the help that they need? How can we start before we've entered into retirement, putting our hand to that work, getting involved in those things so that it's just an easier transition into meaning and purpose when we do that? So often, retirement planning is focused on how much to save, where to save it, how to accumulate it, and all of those things are important. But if that's all you're thinking about when you're thinking about that retirement target, you will find yourself walking into this really confusing open space that doesn't have definition, that doesn't have direction, and it gets really scary. One way that's really helpful to think about that as you're planning for that retirement stage is, what do you want more of in your existing experience of life, and what do you want to see less of? And so for a lot of people, there may be, I want to see more adventure. And we see a lot of that translate into travel. But maybe part of that could be mission trip travel. It could be doing medical relief trips. It could be any number of things that are a combination of the thing you want to see more of connected to the thing God has placed in your heart. What do you want to see less of? Maybe as you look at the way that you have structured your week, you realize there's no rest, there's very little Sabbath, there's not enough space for you to just be. And so retirement would allow you to balance that. I want to see more of this, I want to see less of that. None of it is going to go completely away, but we're walking in a direction. We're moving towards more of this and less of that. That's a really helpful framework, I find, for people to start to be able to narrow the direction that they're heading in retirement. If you've never experienced those things, then it's really hard to frame that up. And so this is also a time, while we are in the season of working, we want to be test driving these different things. We want to be trying on adventure, trying on volunteerism and serving, trying on these different things that we think might be fulfilling and meaningful to us, because we want to know now whether that's true or not. I would have conversations with people that say, when I retire, I'm going to just go volunteer and serve for Habitat for Humanity. I think I'm going to love it. And I would ask the question, have you done that yet? Have you gone and volunteered with them? And they say, no. And it's like, well, you might want to try that. You may find that you hate swinging hammers. You may find that you actually don't enjoy building these homes. You don't like the work that they do. You may love the mission that they're on, but you don't actually like the work. Go do the work. Go see what it's like. Go try these things on. Go put more of that in your life now so that you know whether it actually is what you think it is. That's the kind of work that needs to happen in the planning and the preparation stage as you're aiming towards retirement. One of the other things that we want to think about as we're planning for retirement is just asking ourselves really good questions of what we think it's going to look like. What are our priorities? What are the things that we really want to see focused and organized around? What is our living situation? Are we moving closer to kids and grandkids? Are we going to stay in a certain area? Are we getting further into the city? Are we going out on a farm somewhere? What are we trying to do that would create the environment that would lead us in the direction that we're trying to go? What about our lifestyle? Do we want to draw some lines? We're big fans around here at Good Sense of the lifestyle cap, this idea of drawing the line and saying this far, no further. One thing that gets really muddy in retirement is drawing those lines because you're not getting a paycheck anymore. So there's not this obvious, consistent, confident way that you can draw those lines because the paycheck is coming, how much is in there. This is a much more nebulous thing because now you're living on the resources that you've saved for this purpose. And those don't come in the form of just a standard paycheck kind of experience. And so those lifestyle decisions are really, really critical to map out and say, this is enough. This is contentment. This is satisfaction. This gives us the adventure that we want, but it also keeps us in a place where we are still able to be generous, able to feel abundant and know that we have extra to share. Those are things that get really hard to navigate in retirement when that paycheck goes away. And so having strategies around that is really, really important. One of the other big areas that I see people really struggle as they step into that stage of retirement is identity. For years and years and years, you have told people who you are by what you do. Our identity is so consistently tied to our work, our career, our job title. And in retirement, those things go away. And a lot of times we fade into believing we actually don't have a role to play. We don't add any value. We end up believing that we are just this old retired person because we don't have a title and we don't have an official role. But if we know our identity in Christ, we know who he made us to be. Maybe that identity becomes mentor, teacher, discipler. Those are identities we can grab hold of that actually keep us motivated to pour into others. Those are the things that we really need to start to move towards as we approach retirement. We're gonna start to trade this one identity in, but we want this other identity to grow. If it's too hard of a switch, then we don't know if we can actually believe our new identity, that this is actually who I am. And so we need to actually mix those together as we get closer to that retirement stage. Part of the preparation is actually starting to let go of our importance and our significance in this area and start to actually build significance in our new identity and our new purpose as we step into that next stage. A lot of times people refer to this new season as refirement rather than retirement. It's a great way to think of it, this framework that says we're actually moving into something. There's an intentionality, there's a direction to it. It's not just this stillness and laziness and self-indulgence. It's just re-aiming ourselves at something different and doing it not for a paycheck, but for simply the use of what God has placed in us. It's an honoring of him. It's faithful stewardship to continue to do work that aligns with our skill set. What I would argue is these things that I just laid out are much harder to prepare for. They're much more complicated in terms of planning and getting our mindset right and getting our priorities organized as a couple as we step into these seasons than the financial planning part of things. As complicated as that is, it's actually easier than the stuff we just talked about. Having a good financial planner that can give you very clear advice on what to save, where, how much, how to invest it, all those things are actually much, much more straightforward than this other work. The problem is we tend to spend most of our focus on the financial planning side, and we don't even think about these things until we've crossed that threshold, and then we have to face them all at once. And so the encouragement, if you are getting closer to that retirement stage, 10 years away, let's say, this is the time to start doing some of these things, to start prioritizing, thinking about this stuff this way, so that as the math starts to make sense and the numbers start to get to where they need to be, you're not just ready mathematically. You're also ready relationally and spiritually and emotionally. That's a much heavier lift than just saving enough money. And so, yes, have a financial planner that helps you with the math side, helps you with visioning and understanding how the cash flows are going to work. All of those things are really important. But if we miss these other key areas of preparation, we will find ourselves woefully unprepared for the change that retirement brings. And so I encourage you to step into these conversations, maintaining your stewardship mindset, knowing that your job always through your entire life experience is to honor God with everything that He has given you to manage: your money, your very breath in your lungs, your skills, your talents, your time. All of those things are His, and that doesn't change just because you've retired from a job. You still have work to do, intentional, meaningful work to bring glory to the King of the universe. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Faithful Steward podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for links and other information that we mentioned in today's episode. Also, be sure to check out our website at goodsensemovement.org to get all the resources we offer churches to help equip them in teaching financial stewardship to their community. If you have any questions or any topics you want to make sure we cover on our show, you can email me at jameslenhoff@goodsensemovement.org. I'd love to hear from you.